Please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced by name. Apologies, none received from any Cabinet members. Leader's announcement. I wanted to start by providing an update on devolution and local government. As we know, Hampshire has now been accepted on the government's Fast Track Devolution Priority Programme. The first element of this is the establishment of the Mayoral Strategic Authority for our region, with elections planned for the Mayor in May 2026. The government consultation on this opened this week with a closing date of the 13th of April. The Council has now been formally invited by government to work with other councils in Hampshire and the Solent to develop a proposal for local government reorganisation by the autumn. Whatever we are currently feeling about the process of reorganisation, it is in our best interests to fully engage in this process and help to shape a positive outcome, both for our residents and staff. Both myself and the Chief Executive are meeting regularly with other councils, and I have also sought the views of our two MPs. Whilst being mindful of the broader Hampshire geography, I'll continue to make strong representatives for an outcome that I believe is the best fit for the communities of the New Forest. A report will be coming forward for consideration next month, prior to the deadline of 21st of March, for an interim plan to be submitted to government. As you can imagine, a future moving to a new unitary council does mean we are thinking differently about our priorities, and we will be working hard to ensure we deliver a strong legacy across our assets and our services. I truly thank all the staff who are in an uncertain position are focusing on what we do best, meeting the needs of our residents. Thank you. Item 1, minutes. Do Cabinet members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of February 2025 as a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations or any pecuniary or other interests in respect of the business for this meeting?
None.
None, thank you. Item 3, public participation. There are two members of the public present at the meeting, Melissa and Malcolm. They would like to speak in relation to agenda item 5, specifically the proposed fees and charges for beach huts. I will therefore invite them to speak at the start of that item. Item 4, Housing Revenue Account Budget and Housing Public Sector Capital Expenditure Programme 2025 to 26. I'd like to introduce the portfolio holder, Councillor Steve Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. You won't be surprised to hear that I'm delighted once again we are presenting a balanced budget for the Cabinet's approval, and importantly, one that supports the Council's corporate plan commitments. The proposed budget includes a rent increase of 2.7%, which needs to be viewed against today's inflation figure of 3%, of course, and an uplifted maintenance budget of 18.939 million to be spent on maintaining our tenants' properties in 2025-26. And that includes investment on additional windows, doors, and replacement of heating and insulation to accelerate improvements to our homes for the benefit of our tenants and their household energy bills, a key priority for this Cabinet. And all of this in addition to the continued development and acquisition of new council dwellings. Furthermore, this budget is supported by a 30-year business plan. Spending decisions taken within this proposed budget support the financial sustainability of our HRA over this period. Thank you, Chair.
I'd like to take you now to Richard Knott, who is our Strategic Director, Housing and Communities. Richard.
Thank you, Chairman.
In addition to the points made by the portfolio holder, I would just like to point out that the continued support for compliance and safety for our tenants and our properties. And we are planning a budget of 1.5 million for fire safety works and 1.7 million for decarbonisation works to support the energy efficiency measures that Councillor Davies has highlighted. The additional spending is an increase on previous years, and we've been very keen to support Cabinet with the plan, which does involve increased borrowing, but that borrowing through the 30-year forecast is supported, and we have the capacity to do so to increase our programmes. It's also worth noting that whilst rents are being proposed to be increased, the flexible service charge approach that we instigated last year means that service charges for some tenants will actually be going down this year, and a reflection of improved procurement and reduction in utility bills for those contracts that we have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard. Do any members of the Cabinet have any comments? Councillor Jeremy Heron.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to congratulate the portfolio holder and every member of the housing team on delivering this. We are, I think, one of the leaders in delivering high quality housing to our tenants, and I am extremely proud that we continue, despite the difficult and challenging financial circumstances, to continue on our investment with our properties and ensuring that they remain at a very high standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Derek Tipp.
Yes, I'd like to add to that as well. I think that our housing service is very, very well thought of and very popular with our tenants, and I think they've done a magnificent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Geoffrey Blunden.
Yes, thank you. A truly excellent report, and I particularly welcome the investment on decarbonisation, which fits in so well with our climate change.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Paul.
Just to concur with all the previous colleagues' comments and add that it's obviously why we did so well in the Corporate Peer Challenge in this area.
Thank you. I will now open the floor for any questions. Councillor Philip Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think there's a lot of good work here. I understand that the survey of the rental properties has been complete, so there is a really clear understanding of what work needs to be done. So my question is really about communicating this to our rental residents, because I think there are, as councillors, we have a lot of comments where a property has some very basic things that need doing to it. For example, the door is a major source of heat loss, or the windows and things like that. And where residents see work being done elsewhere and they're waiting for that, they have no kind of idea of where they're fitting in with that programme. I appreciate it's very difficult to give a hard and fast programme for the works going over a number of years, but it would be nice to see that in some way they can see how their particular repairs fit in with the overall scheme. Thank you.
I'll go to portfolio holder, Councillor Steve Davis.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dowd. I think you make a good point. You have to bear in mind that we have a massive maintenance budget with tens of thousands of requests a year. Each item is prioritised, so many times people are on the waiting list, and they are all, as far as I know, they are pretty well kept informed about likely dates for this to happen. Can I defer to Richard Knott?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yeah, we have invested a lot of time, energy and money in forecasting software. And as Councillor Dowd knows, the stock condition survey was completed, 100% surveys. So we have a very good understanding of the condition of our properties and when the component parts require to be replaced. We forecast that over a 30-year period. So we have estimated programmes of delivery for our properties. What we're very keen to avoid is setting false expectations for our tenants of when works may be being carried out, because programmes are changeable depending on demand pressures. So we do have a short-term communication programme with tenants of when to expect works to their properties. However, we will look at that to see if we can extend that without setting any false expectations.
Thank you. Any other members? No? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Councillor Richard Frampton.
Thank you. Yes, I haven't got my little thingy, Councillor Richard Frampton. It's a question of Richard Knott, if possible. When I was last a councillor, I did attend a meeting that was held by District Council in one of the local hotels between council and private landlords, and it was absolutely brilliant. I don't know if it's still going or not, but basically I came away from that and we were all told about the EPCC that was coming in when Rishi Sunak was bringing it in. I went away, I have brought all of my properties up to EPCC over the last 2 years. I would just like to know what percentage of the council tenanted houses are actually up to EPCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frampton. So we have a planned programme now to reach EPCC by the 2030 deadline. This year we've got the budget of 1.8 million, which, if we're successful in receiving a government grant, will support us on a 50-50 basis. We are one of the most successful delivery councils, particularly regionally, for the government grant programmes, and last year we received windfall grants to support an enhanced programme because we'd completed ours successfully and other councils had handed their money back. So we were able to take an additional grant and accelerated works. So we've put ourselves in a best position possible for the software, the training of staff, because they all have to be retrofit qualified. We have to work with properly trained contractors, which we've got good relationships with. We've got procurement frameworks in place, and we've got a real understanding of what's required in those properties by 2030. Specifically, we still have around 2,700 properties still to get to EPCC. However, we have tackled the worst performing properties, those EPC Fs and Gs. And ease. A lot of the properties will take only minimal expenditure and insulation measures to get them from an EPC-D to the EPC-C. So the large part of the work has been completed, but the programmes now that we're planning will get us to the EPC by 2030.
Madam Chairman, then having come straight in, I have to congratulate the team for what they're doing, because they really are ahead of the game.
It's housing, of course they are.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, can I take you, Cabinet, to the recommendations on pages 3 and 4? Do you agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, item 5, medium-term financial plan and annual budget 2025-26. Now, I would like to invite our 2 members of the public to address the Cabinet. You will have 1.5 minutes each. I have a timer in front of me here, so at 1:15 I will raise my arm for you to sum up your speech, if you wouldn't mind. So I would like to invite firstly Melissa Ashman-Kalesha from Barton Beach Huts. Melissa, off you go.
On behalf of beach hut owners, particularly at Barton, I strongly object to NFDC proposals to further raise beach hut fees. Reasons: 1, beach hut fees were raised by over 20% last year. 2, the fee increases are unjustified, other than to maximise income, and without explanation. 3, the increase is discriminatory and breaks the Equality Act 2010, specifically the public sector equality duty. 4. A beach hut is a beach hut. There's no explanation given as to why there are clear disparities, other than by size. 5. Discrimination continues with differential charges for residents and non-residents, with Barton singled out for fee increases of some 41%, clearly unfair, unethical. 6. Why are non-resident owners discriminated against? Same day-to-day living expenses, but live X miles away. The fee rise is unaffordable. 7. You NFDC have created terrible stress and anxiety and affected the mental health well-being of beach hut owners. 8. A fair and equitable solution would be simply a small rise applicable to all or none. Thank you.
Well timed, thank you. I would like to ask now Malcolm Wells to speak from Cowshot Beach Huts. Malcolm.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being allowed to speak today. I've had my beach hut, and which I purchased, I think it was 15, 20 years ago, through some slightly sad, unfortunate circumstances that involved myself, and have thoroughly enjoyed it. And so thank you to the NFDC and the National Parks for that. I've kept it in very good condition. It's been rebuilt recently after probably 4 or 5 years of trying to find someone who would actually do it, as opposed to saying they would do it. And it's particularly nice now, and I'm very proud of it. But my fees 10 years ago were about £500 to £600 a year. The proposed fee next year, after the 20% increase last year, with the proposed 30% increase this year, brings my figure to just under £1,400. The person who could be a local resident next door to me, or next door but one, or just along the row at Cowshot, would be paying 800 and something pounds, in fact 899 to be precise. I think the disparity of nearly £500 between the two isn't really quite right. There's also, I disagree with the charge that's being administered for transfer of beach huts, which at the moment is £746. Other councils charge usually just over £100. And I noticed this year the proposed increase even goes to those, if a death occurs, a transfer charge is actually still charged at £746. I appreciate we're in very difficult times, the council are in difficult times financially, but we seek fairness and ask you to readdress the imbalance in this interest of fairness to all. I just seek your further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I would now like to take you to Councillor Jeremy Heron, which will talk us through the medium-term financial plan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to present the medium-term financial plan and annual budget report, which sets out the balanced budget for 25-26 that continues to support our residents, visitors and businesses by investing in the delivery of our corporate priorities. This achievement is in spite of what is effectively a reduction in government funding via the financial settlement, which has been further compounded by the significant shortfall in promised financial funding that was meant to offset the increase in employers' national insurance. Notwithstanding the challenges due to our continued funding, we have managed to achieve a balanced budget and fund investment in our services due to the continued prudent and diligent financial stewardship of this council. The most significant activities in the forthcoming year is the implementation of the council's waste strategy. In that, we are investing over £2 million of revenue resources, supporting the transition to the new service, including the new weekly food waste collection. Furthermore, this is backed by over £8 million of capital expenditure in new vehicles and bins across the district. As well as a significant investment in our most public-facing service, the budget supports investment in more modern digital services too, as we still head towards increased customer self-service in line with the residents' expectations. All ICT improvements are more important than ever as we ensure our services are fit for the purpose as we engage in the devolution process and local government reform. Furthermore, we are providing £250,000 of community grants and is included in the recommendation the intention to use up to £1.377 million worth of reserves over the medium term to invest in our community assets, so that whoever has the responsibility in the future inherits assets in their best possible condition. Chairman, I would finally like to thank my fellow Cabinet members for the work and involvement in this collective piece of work, and I'm very pleased with the outcome as presented in this report. I should also like to thank our incredible staff in the delivery of this, because without that, we could not achieve what we do today. Thank you.
I'd like to take you to Paul Whittles, who is Assistant Director of Finance. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Further to the portfolio holder's comments, I can confirm the report proposes a balanced budget for 25-26. The net budget requirement for 25-26 is 25.5 million, and in addition to those items already referenced, the budget makes provision for other significant sums, including 1.36 million to cover the council's increase in pay costs, including known and forecast pay award implications and the requirement to cover the 75% shortfall in support for additional employers' NI costs. There is £100,000 available to manage inflationary pressures, and there are a number of one-off items have been removed that were relating to 24-25 activity, as they have now concluded, with a £40,000 replacement to fund reviews in our commercial waste and glass collection services. Whilst a significant amount is being spent on our new waste service, as already referenced by the portfolio holder, the budget includes assumptions that £1.175 million of extended producer responsibility funding and £1.5 million of new burden support to the new food waste collections will be forthcoming. Additional income as per the fees and charges policy and as informed by external benchmarking exercise plus contractual uplifts increase our income expectations. This is dampened in part by some resetting of planning fees expectations, and Appendix 7 includes all the details regarding fees and charges for 25-26. It's worth noting that the council tax increase is 2.99% in line with government expectations and the flexibility is allowed, and this equates to a £5.98 increase, with all NFD services now costing the taxpayer just under £4 per week. And this is approximately 9% of the total tax budget, tax bill, sorry. As mentioned earlier, and paragraph 31 demonstrates the balanced position for 25-26 and also effectively in 26-27, whilst also showing the 2.22 million gap over the remainder of the medium term. It also illustrates that should council not choose to increase council tax in line with the flexibilities and government guidance, this would add an additional £1.47 million to the medium-term gap. Subject to future assumptions regarding fees and charges, there would be a requirement to draw down £1.3 million from the budget equalisation reserve in place. This then provides up to £1.377 million to be sensibly considered available to support the investment in community assets detailed earlier by the portfolio holder. As a reminder, the revenue budget also includes £2.5 million to fund the asset maintenance and replacement programme and the specific recommendation to approve the £19.411 million capital programme. These were both considered in detail at the previous Cabinet meeting on the 5th of February. And finally, please note the Section 25 statement from the Section 151 officer in paragraph 39, which sets out their satisfaction that the figures included in the report, including estimates, are appropriate and robust, and that the availability of cash and the level of reserves held by the Council are adequate throughout the medium term. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Do any members of Cabinet have any comments? Councillor Geoffrey Blunden.
I perhaps just wanted to come back on the public participation section on the beach huts. I understand the concerns of the owners on these price increases. It is not something that we wanted to do, and we sought long and hard. But we did do an extensive benchmarking exercise looking at comparison beach hut fees right the way across the country, but in particular in this area. And that really did indicate what is being proposed in this document is fair and reasonable. as I say, not something we wanted to do, but we are facing some challenges in our budgets, and it was particularly important that that is addressed.
Councillor Heron.
Chairman, just to follow on to that, as you've sat through, and I hope you've seen the papers for this, you will see that our medium-term financial plan does show extreme pressure on this council's finances, and I challenged all portfolio holders to look at every aspect of income to maximise that in order to address it, because what we don't find comes from the council tax, and it falls quite often on some of our poorest and most deprived areas to cover these costs, and that seems unreasonable when people are going for luxury items. It is a very, very, very difficult choice. I know it is, and it is particularly difficult when it impacts on you personally, especially if you've had a flat like the gentleman's had for 15, 20 years. I am very much aware of it. I would love not to do it. I really would love not to do it. I would love not to have to do it. But our finances are such that the government, central government, reducing its funding to us puts pressure on us, and we must react to that pressure to deliver the essential services across the whole of this council to our residents.
Thank you. Any other members of the floor? Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, we're sort of going into uncharted territory over the next few years, and I appreciate that there are things that need to carry on to make sure that we are functioning in the way that we would like for our residents. There are some big unknowns, of course. We've got unknowns in the waste service, where it's very difficult to plan for what may or may not happen in the next few years. My main point, though, is that as we move forward and the local reorganisation moves forward and we're aware of who our partners are, I think it's really important that those conversations between partner district and borough councils are ongoing to make sure that any movement is as smooth as it can be, particularly in terms of asset management and that kind of thing. So I would hope that this council is having ongoing discussions with any potential partners moving towards a more unitary authority. Thank you.
Rest assured, those conversations are happening every day, every minute. Anybody else? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Having spent a lot of my early life down on Calshot Beach, for example, I'm interested, first of all, was the benchmarking with Cadland Estate of sleeping chalets, and I think the out of proportion rise, if you benchmarked what they were doing with £100,000 properties down there compared to the ones that are sheds, basically, would probably be totally out of sync. I'm glad that we've looked at benchmarking with other authorities, but I'd very be interested if we did that. I know cemeteries double the fee because people are using our land when there's someone out of borough, but to actually get close to that with people who are coming in and spending money in the district area, I think could be looked at slightly differently. I understand there's facilities like toilets that have to be maintained and things, but I do find, having heard the residents and having seen the figures now, that there is some disproportionality with these beach huts, and I would really like them looked into a bit clearer. And the question of, did we benchmark Cadland with the sleeping chalets, because I think this is out of proportion to what they charge in consideration of the cost of those huts. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are noted. Right. Anybody else from the floor? No? Okay. Can I take you to the recommendations on pages 35 and 36? Cabinet, do you agree?
Agree.
Thank you. I'd like to thank both the members, Melissa and Malcolm, for coming along today. And I now declare the meeting is closing. Thank you.